Hi, welcome to Contributions with me, Andrew Mosawi. My guest this week is Jon Biedermann, who's the founder CEO of SimplyFundraisingCRM. Before that, he was 24 years with DonorPerfect Solutions. So incredible history working technology for the nonprofit sector. He also sits at the board of Giving USA, as well as the chair of the Fundraising Effectiveness Project, which we're going to talk all about because it's fascinating the work that he's doing there and the organizations that contribute to it are as well. So hope you enjoy this. Jon, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
It's great to see you. It's great to see you. And may I say, what a fantastic experience. All of my contributions, discussions and conversations have been in sort of, either in home offices or in empty offices. And so this is a lovely change. So thank you for that.
Yeah. It's called Kids Castle. It's based in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. Believe it or not, it is an 8-story wooden castle behind us with 2 racing 40-foot slides. And the background of it, it's how I got actually involved. One of the ways I got involved in nonprofits, my kids would come here when they were very little. They're now in college, most of them. And so with that, it was about 8 years ago where my daughter read a newspaper article. She was 12 at the time, and she said, "Oh my gosh, they're gonna have to demolish Kids Castle because it's made out of wood, all these other problems." And she said, "Dada, you have to save it." And so I joined the committee. I ended up being the finance director, and it took us 3 years and $750,000, but we saved it. And as you can see, it's being used right now today. So one of the many ways people fall into philanthropy, this is one of them.
Isn't that great? And isn't it because, I think once it's in the blood, it's very, very difficult to kind of stop in any, either personally or professionally.
Absolutely.
And you're living proof of that. Well, it looks fantastic, and I can't wait. Maybe I have to be careful about showing my kids this because they're going to want to be on the next plane over there because it looks fantastic. So that's better. Now you're comfortable. You don't have to be holding your phone. But thank you for sharing that. That's fantastic. I really appreciate that. It's lovely to see the work that all of that everyone's doing in the community. So as I was saying in the introduction, Jon, I mean, you have been in this sector for a while. I mean, you were, I think you were at an organization for 24 years. You were actually, at DonorPerfect software for 24 years. You were instrumental into the release of multiple of their products. And so you've got a, extraordinary history in fundraising technology, nonprofit technology and solutions just generally. And now you've obviously launched your own, your next solution and offering, which I want to hear all about. And then I really want to hear, because you're not only on the board of the Giving USA Foundation, but you're also chair of the Fundraising Effectiveness Project, which is coming out with some fantastic data. So why don't we start a little bit about just interested in your journey in technology over this time and more importantly, what you've seen.
Well, how I started out with, it's like a lot of people, I had a technical background, but then fell into nonprofits and then decided that I would, rather than making or selling more soap for Procter & Gamble, I thought selling hope was a little bit more fulfilling. And I fell into a job at the time. It was with this tiny little company called Software, based out of outside Philadelphia, but they were working on this brand new revolutionary software program called DonorPerfect. And when I joined, there was only 6 people at the start. This is 1995, I think. And we were one of the first Windows. So for those folks, those viewers that are older, we were one of the first Microsoft Windows software programs that are out there. And then, of course, we were absolutely the second online in a cloud software solution after eTapestry. So that's how I got involved with that. And I've been involved ever since in technology and basically utilizing whatever is the most modern technology approach to solve people's problems.
And so how did you come, because it's really interesting, the solution that you're launching, and I really want to learn more about it. I want you to share more about it because, of course, I'm proud to be your business partner, and iATS, of course, is very proud to be your business partner there. But I'm just fascinating because you've obviously taken all of the learning that you've had over the years, and then just decided to kind of just take that and then essentially bring all of those best practices into a new solution that you're taking to the market. So tell us a little bit about that journey.
Right. So, well, it all started when, it was about 18 months ago, right before COVID hit, that I was the managing director, vice president of DonorPerfect. So I was in charge of the P&L, but the majority owner and I discussed it, and he wanted to move in a different direction. So when that happens, I did have some small equity, and so we had a very friendly split. And then, of course, COVID happened. But then I decided, you know what? I still think there's a lot of opportunities for technology to make a difference in small nonprofits, also smart nonprofits. And I say smart because one of the things I always know is the number one barrier to fundraising success is friction. And right now, online fundraising software has a lot of friction. I was at the Giving Institute Summer Symposium, and a speaker mentioned that it took on average 7 minutes for a donor to fill out an online donation form, which I think is absolutely criminal, if you ask me. Because I know that the more things you ask on an online form, while it may sound great for the nonprofit to collect the data, oh, do you want to be a volunteer, for example? Do you want to receive these newsletters? But every single time that you add another friction point, another decision point, like filling in a field, it reduces the response rate of getting of the gift in the first place, which, of course, may be antithetical to what you're actually trying to do. If that's raising money, then you want to make it as simple as possible. So SimplyFundraisingCRM really takes that to the extreme. So, for example, there's no passwords. All you do to log in is using a Google account, or use a magic link through email, because we use email to authenticate everybody, just like PayPal does, just like Slack does. And so in order to log in, it's very, very easy. So when somebody's invited to an organization, they can invite others just with a click of a mouse, and then those people can log in with one click. It's one click login. And that and many other things within SimplyFundraisingCRM, including the donation processing, proudly provided by iATS. I had to plug that in there, but makes it very simple for donors to make donations. And of course, the way that we do it is that we make magic links for the donors to click on. Since we know who they are, they just click on it. All they have to do is provide a credit card if it's not already on file. And that makes the online giving experience very seamless, very frictionless to get more donors to actually give.
Do you think that, and I've seen it, and it's fantastic, and I love the approach, and I love simplifying is, I mean, that's obviously that's how we got here, is by simplifying the process of things, especially around payments. But do you feel that this is actually, and the simplification of data management and CRM just generally is going to open it up for a new kind of section of nonprofit organizations that have historically just found it just too overwhelming to get in and have the right technology to support their organization?
I completely agree. By reducing the friction and also the price point to some degree, to get into a sophisticated system that uses all the best practices. Because the other thing I've been very fortunate is I've surrounded myself with experts from across the country. Many of them are involved in the Giving Institute. And so they have provided, we have a library of 30 plus different videos on fundraising techniques and strategies, so that when they're in the software and they're recording a gift or thanking a donor, then these videos reinforce what they probably already know is correct, that you need to thank donors within 72 hours, for example. You need to personalize, and you need to steward your donors. But then the other thing we also try to do with SimplyFundraisingCRM is make it fun. And that is whenever the user does something that is good for the organization, recording a gift, thanking a donor, sending out a donation request, well, little confetti streams pop up in the display. And this gamification is similar if you play the game Bejeweled on a phone and you line up 5 or 6 of the jewels and boom, these things, special things happen. The same thing happens at ours. In fact, different amounts of gifts actually produce different amounts of confetti. So it's something that we put in there to make the fundraising software actually fun again.
Yeah, that's so cool. You've touched on this a couple of times, and I do want to talk about it. The fundraising effectiveness. I mean, Giving USA just generally, obviously, incredible brand, very, very well recognized and known. But I think the fundraising effectiveness project, which is just such a explain and share a little bit for those that don't know about it. I think it's really worth just going through. What is it, and what's its goal?
Sure. The nonprofit industry is really it's interesting that they're unlike almost every other industry that's out there. Let's say the Automobiles Manufacturers Association, or the National Real Estaters, or even the National Restaurant Association. They all have independent data bodies, basically, to put it in that way, where that collects all the data from all the companies, the competitors that are in the industry, and so that people can benchmark themselves against others. So grocery stores do this, automobile dealerships do this, and by benching yourself against others in your industry, you can see, well, how am I doing compared not only obviously to yourself, but which is the most important, but also to your peers in the industry. And in the nonprofit world, none of that existed, because all the data is in silos. Or if it was available, it was only available for a $100,000 plus membership fee that was available only to very large direct mail nonprofits. Yeah. So what the Fundraising Effectiveness Project does is it democratizes the data and allows all nonprofits and nonprofit fundraisers to see exactly what is the state of the nonprofit industry right this second. And unlike Giving USA, Giving USA is the authority on giving in the U.S. They've been doing it for 66 years, 65 years, something like that. I should know. I'm on the executive board, but and they do a really deep dive in all the industries. The data is a little bit dated, right? The data itself is from IRS. It's based on models that, and some of this data is, from 9 months, 12 months ago. Whereas the Fundraising Effectiveness Project does allow much more near real-time data analysis. Though I might caution, though, that you do need to be careful. Funny story. One of the things we've seen is that as nonprofits record their data, there is absolutely a time lag between when they record their donations and when they actually enter it in to the system. And in some cases, it can be not only weeks, it can be months later. And so we will see that in the data that, overall giving as of today, let's say August 8th, this is when we record this. I can actually run a query and says, it's down 3%. But I know that there's a lag effect that if I just wait 30 days and still look at the date of today, August 8th, what will happen is that the reporting that hasn't happened yet will happen. The recording of the gifts eventually catches up, and at which point then you have a much better comparison. So it's a near real-time analysis of what it is. But it's not just about reporting. Fundraising Effectiveness Project also has tools, free tools, called the Fundraising of Fitness Test, for example, that allows people to, fundraisers and practitioners, to plug in their own data into a free Excel template, and then it will run all these statistics that we also run on the overall data set, things like donor retention rate, but not just overall donor retention rate, but by segment. For example, what's your donor retention rate for people that give over $10,000 or under $500? Yeah. And how is that different versus others? And that's the type of fine tuning that you can use this Excel tool, and it's free to everybody. Just go to www.afpfep.org.
And I'll post that with this interview. I'll post it also in the link in the comments so everyone can have access to it, because it's a really fantastic, and it's a fantastic offering. And frankly, I think that we need to do a better job as stakeholders, as providers, to continue to, and I encourage every single provider in the nonprofit sector that's serving the sector that's out there to contribute to this, because it's going to become richer with the more data that it has. And how is it evolving? Is there any particular area that it focuses on, or that it will be focusing on in future that it's not currently?
Well, yes, actually, we have a new strategic plan that we just adopted about about a year ago now, and that calls on more research to be done. And we actually now have funds available. We've been in partnership with Giving Tuesday. So both Giving Tuesday and the Fundraising Effectiveness Project now both co-equally promote and own the Fundraising Effectiveness report, the report itself. The Fundraising Effectiveness Project is still its own entity under the Association of Fundraising Professionals, but the report is co-owned by both Giving Tuesday and us. And so that actually then allows us to focus more on research-based tools. And we actually have a $10,000 fund now set up for grants related to that. We'll be putting RFPs out for that. And we're excited about really focusing on what are the levers that people can use to increase their fundraising based on the data that we see coming in.
That's pretty smart, because I think they've, that Giving Tuesday, that's a fascinating, and again, we contribute to that. I think that's interesting because it looks at, does Giving Tuesday, is it accretive to overall giving, or does it essentially, I don't want to use the word cannibalize, but does it certainly take from other pieces? And I think the results are overwhelmingly in favor of the fact that it's accretive, that it actually it grows overall giving. And
the data is very conclusive that people who start their giving with a nonprofit on Giving Tuesday end up giving more often and at a higher average gift amount, which then of course ends up being a higher lifetime average. And that's in the data. And it also doesn't take away from the organization's overall giving, like end of year. And that was a valid concern when it first came out, but I believe the data has been overwhelmingly positive to show that that's not true.
Yeah, fantastic. So as you look at the data, as you look at the work with Fundraising Effectiveness Project, obviously coupling that with your history and experience with technology, what do you see as next in that landscape? The context for that question, Jon, of course, is, there are a lot of very big transactions going on all the time. There's a lot of new products and solutions coming to the market, every single month, it seems. And so where do you think it's going? What do you think is the next big thing, the next evolution in the sector?
Well, I really do think, and yes, I'm a little prejudiced, is that just the general adoption of tools like mine and others in the marketplace still needs to happen. Because right now there's what depending upon which IRS report you believe, there's about 1.4, 1.5 million nonprofits in the U.S. However, only about maybe 100,000 of them have software specifically designated for nonprofit fundraising. Right. So there's still a ton of people who they might have QuickBooks, for example, but they don't have donor management software. They're not cultivating their donors, and they're certainly not measuring retention rates, and they're not A/B testing. They're not doing any of that stuff. They're not even thanking their donors. In fact, it is a dirty little secret in the industry that the average nonprofit takes, forget days, measured in weeks to thank a donor. To thank a donor. And things like those, those are low-hanging fruit. But for more established nonprofits, folks that already have these programs in place, what I do see happening, it's really all about data and the use of AI and machine learning. Now, for a lot of folks, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, that's something I've heard," and that's because it's only really been used in the for-profit world for like the last 6-7 years, and in some cases longer than that. But in general, its breakout moment was about 6-7 years ago, and that really also absolutely corresponds with my philosophy that nonprofit, the entire industry, is about 6, 7, 8 years behind technology-wise with for-profits. And you saw this with adoption of just computer programs in the 1990s. You saw it with the adoption of just broadband internet, just to get internet alone. And then the adoption of just email was years and years and years. It wasn't until I'd say 2007 or 8 where email was then at a critical point for nonprofit organizations. believe it or not. I mean, it's that far behind. But I do think that nonprofits are doing a much better job than they used to, and that the next generation of tools will focus on ease of use, adoption, and then AI and machine learning to provide a feedback loop to improve your results more automatically, and using data to make decisions instead of gut or having the board members say, we have to stop sending solicitations because one of my friends said he gets too much. And then, of course, it's the worst thing you could possibly ever do. All the data says you should actually send more, because your donors may say they don't like it, but that's not how they behave.
Well, and it's interesting because, I think that what you are doing and what others are doing now, which is launching solutions that are not only, they're innovative, they are speaking to a very specific need in the charity, but they're also accessible and they're cost effective. Because, the challenge also has been, I think this is one of the challenges that I know we've talked about it. I talk a lot about this just generally, is the fact that it's not a level playing field. Nonprofits don't have the ability, as long as donors keep talking about the cost of administration and using that as the fundamental metric with which success is measured, then they're not really allowed to invest in the things that they need to in order to grow and become more successful. Right. And that to me is, it's naive to think that this can be changed overnight, or that we can start, but it's one of the, I think, the overall challenges, which is that many organizations are handcuffed with this, an inability to invest in the human capital, the assets, the technology that they need, because of this kind of focus on of course, fiscal responsibility. I'm not saying swing the other way, but the very fact that you are deploying solutions that allows organizations to adopt technology speaks to the fact that, I think we're getting somewhere, and I think we can continue to support organizations in their quest, whatever.
Right. I think the transition to maximize outcomes instead of minimizing expenses, that is it's something that's been happening for quite a long time. I will say this, the more progressive donors definitely see this as more of a social return on investment. And they're the ones thinking that way. In my experience, sometimes it's actually the internal people at nonprofits, especially board members, who they project how they feel about, we got to minimize costs onto how donors of the entire organization feel. And I think that's a really big mistake to do. And I see it, unfortunately, a lot. And unfortunately, the smaller the organization, the more likely that's true.
Yeah. Well, no, it's a fantastic, it's a whole separate conversation. I think it's an important one. I love it. I think what you're doing, what we do, what all of the folks that I speak to in contributions is, we have to continue to find ways that make it, that make organizations, or give them the ability to do things and save time, save money, but also to raise money and generate more money and grow and scale. So that's our responsibility. But before I let you go, I'm going to do same thing as I always do, as you may have seen, which is the quick 6. And so I'm going to ask you rapid fire 6 questions. I hope you're prepared. Number 1, what is your least favorite app on your iPhone?
Least favorite app?
Yeah.
I'd say the calendar.
The calendar app. Favorite song?
Favorite song? House at Pooh Corner.
Say that again.
House at Pooh Corner. It's a camp song. I used to be a summer camp director.
Okay, well that makes sense, but I'm going to have to Google that one. Favorite movie?
Tombstone, without a doubt. Best movie ever made.
Great. It's a great movie. If you could live anywhere else in the world, where would it be?
Australia.
Any particular place or anywhere?
I'd say Sydney.
Okay. All right. This is a tough one, because I think I know this one. First nonprofit organization you ever remember as a child? Well, actually, maybe it goes back. So it goes further back than Kids Castle. So.
Way back. It absolutely would be the Blue Ash Women's Club in Blue Ash, Ohio. The reason is that my mother was ended up being the president, but she would run these fundraisers called basically their lobster sales. They'd buy a ton of lobsters in the middle of nowhere suburb of Cincinnati, Ohio, then sell them as a fundraiser. So we got to eat lobster one time a year as a kid. Even kids got to eat lobster, and that was like a big deal. And then, of course, I clearly found out that, it's all for, all the money goes to charity. We would help with picking them up and delivering them and things like that. I was maybe 4 or 5 years old, 6 years old, and we did that, for a very long time before she transitioned out of the organization.
Fantastic. Great story. Last one. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I did think of this earlier when you said it, but definitely a PA announcer for professional sports.
Oh, really? Okay. Which sport is it? Which sport would you start with?
I'd say probably baseball.
Baseball. Fantastic.
Baseball, and I'm used to doing voice events, emceeing voice, special events, things like that. I'm a former camp director, so I have a booming voice. I go, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending the 6th annual, and that's how that works.
That's pretty good. I can go. That makes sense. Hey, Jon, it's great to see you. Thanks ever so much. I really appreciate the time. It's great.
And Andrew, thank you very much for the opportunity. Looking forward to working with you and your using the technology, the payment processing. It's working out great so far. And thanks for doing this. I think it's a real help to the sector.
Oh, wonderful. Listen, great to see you. All the best. Have a lovely afternoon.
Take care. Great. I'm going to go out here.
Yeah. Okay. Cheers. See ya.
See ya.